In this series of videos, we're going to use the template below to create the license plate above using Photoshop. I'm going to start the process by adding a new layer. We need to create the rounded rectangle shape to start. I'm going to hit U on the keyboard. And when I hit U on the keyboard, it takes me to the path tools that we see inside of Photoshop. And I'm choosing the one that's got the rounded rectangle. Once I've chosen that, I'm going to make sure that it's set for path in the upper right-hand corner of the application itself. I'll click anywhere in the center of the file, and in the Create Rounded Rectangle window that pops up, I'm going to make the width 12 inches, and I'll make the height 6 inches. And I'm making each of the corners 200% pixel roundness, and I've chosen from center. And when I click OK, it creates the rounded rectangle shape that will give us the foundation of the file. And now I'm going to hit A on the keyboard, and it will take me to the arrow tool. There are two choices with the arrow tool. There's the white one and the black one. I want the black so that when I click on the shape, it selects the entire piece of geometry. And I'll place it where it needs to be in the context of the template. Now I'm going to right-click and hold my mouse and choose Make Selection. I'll click OK, and now I have the marching ants for the shape that I need to color for the beginning of the license plate. I've provided us with a file with the colors we'll be using for the New York State license plate. When I open it in Photoshop, I can get my eyedropper tool if I hit I, and I'll select the orange, and go into my file with the license plate template, making sure the new layer is selected. Hit G to get my paint bucket tool. And with my paint bucket tool, I'll fill it with orange, and I'll deselect. And at this point, I would save. Next, I want to make the openings where the license plate screws would attach it to a car. I'll drop the opacity of the layer to about 50%, and once again, I'll hit U on the keyboard. I'll click on the hole in the upper left-hand corner, and I'll drag the shape I need. If I need to, I can hit Command T, and that will let me move it around and scale it. Now that I have the shape I want, I'll make sure that I'm on the black arrow, and then I'll right-click and choose Make Selection, click OK, and I'll hit Delete. Now I've got the marching ants in the shape I need, so if I go to my Marquee tool by hitting M, I can now click and drag that to the one on the right-hand side, and I'll hit Delete, and I'll do that for each of the openings for the screws. I'll deselect and save. Now with the orange plate made, I'm going to return the opacity to 100% in the layer window, and I'm going to put Bevel and Emboss on it to make it look like it is metal. Going to the layer window, I'll go to FX, and I'll choose Bevel and Emboss. And in the Bevel and Emboss settings, I'll make sure that the style is inner bevel, and the technique is chisel soft. I've made the depth 100, and I've made the size 10, and I've left the softness off. Now we're going to introduce some of the blue content that would appear for the text and the trim on the inside of the plate. We're going to start by making the blue border on the inside perimeter of the plate. To do so, we're going to make a selection of the whole plate shape itself. I'll select the layer with the orange background we just created. Hitting W on the keyboard, I'm going to make sure I've got the magic wand tool. I'll click outside the shape with the magic wand tool. Now we have the shape we want of the plate, but we also have the outside border. So we need to inverse the selection so it's just around the shape of the plate. Going to select at the top of the user interface and clicking on Inverse. Now I'm going to add a new layer. In the template provided, I'm going to get my eyedropper tool once again, and I'll click on the blue box. That will give us the color we need for the text as well as this border. I'm going to hit M on the keyboard, and then I'll right-click inside the selection and choose Stroke. I've set the stroke for 20 pixels. And when I click OK, I have a blue border shape. I'll deselect. And next we're going to scale it so it's just inside the perimeter of the orange plate below. Hitting Command T on the keyboard, I'll hold down my Shift key And now I can adjust this on each of the sides to get exactly what I might want. Once I've saved, I'll go to the layer with the orange plate color, and I'll right click and I'll choose Copy Layer Style. I'll select the layer with the blue border, and I'll right click and choose Paste Layer Style. And now we have the bevel, so it looks like the paint is sitting on top of the metal surface. Next, we'll add the text and the numbers to the license plate. Once again, I'll go to the layer with the orange, and I'll drop the opacity to about 50 again so I can see the size and position of the text and numbers in the center of the plate. I'll hit T on the keyboard to get my text tool. And now I'm going to put my cap lock on, and I'm going to choose Helvetica or Arial for the font. And I'll choose Helvetica Bold or Arial Bold. And I'll start out by making the point size 72. I'll click inside my file, and I'll put in my initials and a dash, and then I'll put in the number, maybe the year. I'll click on the Move tool to set that, and now I'm going to try and scale this so that it's the same height as the numbers and text below. Now, if we look at a license plate, we can see that the letters are somewhat stretched vertically. And to do that, I'm going to make sure I'm on my text tool, and with the layer selected, I'll go to the character box, which can be gotten by going to the top of the user interface, and just to the right of that little T on the arc, you'll see a page icon with some lines and kind of bullets in front of it. And when I click on that, I'll get the character window. In the character window, below the white VA box that you see here, you'll see a T with a white arrow and two arrowheads on it. The smaller this number, the narrower my text will get. So you can see that if you start to play around with this, I've set it for 70, and now I'm going to scale it again. Now I could also hold the Shift key, and I could drag from the top if I wanted to. And once I have something that's similar to what a license plate would be like, I'll set the scale and save. Now I'm going to copy the Bevel and Emboss to that layer as well. Right-clicking on my text layer, I'll choose Paste Layer Style from the previous bevel that I used for the blue line as well as the license plate. Now it's a little too soft on the numbers, so I will go to the layer window, and if I click on the word Bevel and Emboss, it'll bring me to the layer style. In there, I'll increase the depth. I'll make it about 180, and then I'll click OK. So now it's a little bit more pronounced on the numbers themselves. Now I'm going to repurpose this text and copy the layer to make the word New York as well as Empire State with the number on either side. Going to the layer window, I'll duplicate that layer that I just introduced with the text and numbers by right-clicking and choosing Duplicate, and I'll move that up because that's going to say New York. I'll hit T on the keyboard, and I'll click in between any of the characters. I'll hit Command A, and then I'm going to type in, with the cap lock on, New York. And now I'll hit Command T to scale it, and I want it to be kind of the size of what I see on the plate above. If I need to, I can hold the Shift key now, and I can stretch it on the sides until it fits the proportion of the license plate. Now if we look closely, the bevel's a little too pronounced. So I'll double click on the word Bevel and Emboss once again, and I'll start to drop the depth of this. I'll make the depth about 80, and I'll make the size 5. And we should have something like this. Now just like the word New York, I'm going to copy the layer with the text and replace the characters on that copy with the content here where it has the year and Empire State. Once again, I'll right-click in the layer window and choose Duplicate Layer. Clicking OK, I'll move it down with my Move tool. Hitting T on the keyboard, I'll select in between the characters, and I'll start to put this content in. Now there's a lot of space that we need in between the actual numerical dates. I'll put in 19, And I'll start to put some dates in, and then I'll put in Empire State and a couple more spaces, and then I'll put in any random sort of a year. And once I have it roughly what I need, I can now go in and refine it. I've lined up the 19, and now I'll hit T on the keyboard, and with my space bar I'll position the text and the numbers to the left of the number 19. And I'll save. If I return the opacity of the orange plate back to 100, we should have something like this.